With Scream 7 hitting theaters recently, it's time to ask the question, how does Scream 7 stack up to the rest of the Scream movies in the franchise? So let's go ahead and get into this video ranking all of the Scream movies. If you checked out my latest review, you know who it's going to be at the bottom, and that is going to be Scream 7. When it comes to Scream 7, there was really not too much I liked about this movie. The whole Ghostface reveal, who was the actual killers themselves, and the whole motivation behind it was just so lackluster. It's my least favorite in the franchise. Some of the characters I couldn't really get invested with either, like some of the main kid characters. Aside from some of the sleigh scenes and just seeing Sidney again in the movie, the Scream movie, there really wasn't too much I liked about this movie. It honestly is going to go down as probably one of my least favorites as in the franchise as of now. Getting into the next one on the list is going to be Scream 3. Now, before Scream 7 came out, the consensus on the Scream movies in the franchise, Scream 3 was a lot of people's lower tier movie. And sure, I'll probably agree with that it's probably not as strong as some of the other movies in the franchise, but I still think that Scream 3 is a solid, watchable movie. I was even saying before Scream 7 came out, even with this one being at the bottom tier of the Scream franchise, this whole Scream franchise as a whole was still pretty good to solid horror franchise. So even though this is not necessarily the strongest in the franchise or anything like that, it's still a pretty solid watchable movie. Now, when it comes to some of these next movies on the ranking, if you ask me any other day, my ranking could probably change in a couple of spots here and there. These next movies are not too far apart when it comes to me. You know, there's just small smidge differences when it comes to actually ranking them. With that being said, in the next one is going to be Scream 2. When it comes to Scream 2 had the impossible task of living up to the first original movie with this first sequel. And I gotta say, when it comes to Scream 2, they did a pretty good job overall of living up to that original movie. This one is still a pretty great movie. It's a great sequel. It's one I enjoy. So this one is definitely a pretty good one in the franchise. Next one in the ranking, I gotta go with Scream 5. When it comes to Scream 5, this was a good return to the franchise of Scream when we haven't had a Scream movie in almost 11 years. This one had an impossible task of just giving us a good Scream movie after not having one for 11 years. And they were able to live up to that. They gave us a great new cast of characters that are likable. I really like the motivation behind the Ghostface. Not necessarily the reveal, but I did like the motivation that they had. We get the return cast of some of our legacy characters and just the whole meta commentary on the whole requel, reboot, legacy thing that's going on. Honestly, I like how the story played out. And next up, we got Scream 6. One of my favorite things about this movie was that the whole New York setting was, I think, a pretty good setting to have for this movie. With this movie, this one is definitely one of the more gruesome ones in the franchise, and I think this one is definitely a stronger contender for being one of the better ones in the franchise. Aside from like the actual Ghostface reveal, which maybe not be one of the strongest in the franchise, but this overall movie is still pretty good. Still one I like to go back to rewatch. Getting into the number 2 spot is going to be Scream 4. This one I really do like, and aside from the original Scream movie, this one is probably one of my other favorites in the franchise. To me, this one is one of the better sequels in the franchise. And maybe it's some like sort of bias, but this movie, I remember it came out whenever I was a Scream fan for at least a couple of years. I saw the original movies. So I just have like a bias toward, maybe it's a small bias towards like having seen this one for, you know, this one was being like one of the first Scream movies I was seeing. But one of the things I like about this movie is the whole Ghostface reveal, is the whole motivation behind the Ghostface. And who it ended up being, I was like shocked and surprised. This one probably has one of the most shocking reveals in all of the franchise. It's one of the ones I like to go back to rewatch ever so often. So yeah, this one is definitely one of my favorites in the franchise. Of course, coming in at the top spot is going to be the first original Scream movie. As Sidney said in Scream 4, never fuck with the original. And she is right, rightfully so. When it comes to the first original Scream movie, this one is definitely one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Just the way that you get this first movie, it sets up this whole franchise. Just the way we get the reveals of Stu and Billy. And just setting this standard for, you know, slasher, mystery, whodunits. They really were cooking when they came out with this movie. And it just shows as time goes on how this movie just stands the test of time. How many people still love this movie. How many people go into this movie watching it for the first time and end up liking it. This just sets a precedent for just horror in general, slashers and all that. So of course, the original first Scream movie had to come in at the top spot.